All right. All right, we look good here. All right. It's always funny having the little we look good here echoes at that beginning, which is part of the reason why I keep my phone on, to be able to watch and manage the live stream, because this way you don't get any sort of annoying echoes. I've dressed for the occasion.
You're perfect.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Group Tarot's YouTube channel, where we chat about decks and chat with authors and creators. And today, in enjoyment of the season, I am super excited to have Barbara Moore with me, creator of the Trick or Treat Tarot. Barbara and I met at the Northwest Tarot Symposium last year, where I purchased this lovely deck because I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect for all of my Halloween and Samhain gatherings that I had coming up. And I was correct. And so I am thrilled to welcome you to Group Tarot's YouTube channel. Barbara, how are you this morning? I'm sorry that I scared you with the wrong time. I apologize for that. How you doing?
I'm doing great. My heart is pumping very strongly, so I'm very ready for this.
Yeah. So how I purchased this from you last year, but how long has the Trick or Treat Tarot been out?
Wasn't last year the first year it was out? 2022. Yeah, last year. It came out last fall.
Oh, delightful. So I got a first copy.
You got a fresh copy.
I got a early one. I didn't even realize. So in preparation for chatting with you, I reread the book last night, and I know that there are that people have a lot of different opinions on read the book, don't read the book, just use your intuition and go from the cards, know what the author and the artist had in mind. And I'm somewhere in the middle of those. I always love to know what the artists and creators intended, even if my readings veer differently. And one of the things that I was struck by is that I really felt like you and the illustrator, Jonathan Hunt, had a really solid relationship, because I know that some tarot decks, the book is written and the author doesn't really have the artwork, and sometimes vice versa. And so I'd love to hear about the relationship that you and Jonathan cultivated in creating Trick or Treat or Trick or Treat Tarot.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there are lots of different ways that I've worked on decks, and I can talk about that in a moment. I would love to, because it is kind of interesting how they are handled differently. But Jonathan and I, we had a really good relationship. Now, I've worked with many artists over the years, and I have had great relationships with all of them, luckily. But I think Jonathan and I kind of connected even on a different level. And I'm not sure why. We've never met in person. We've never talked on the phone. Our emails are pretty short and curt. Not curt. That's probably the wrong way. We're both curmudgeons. So we do not worry about the niceties. It's like so easy for me to talk to him because I don't have, because we
Yeah,
in the same place. We're creating something. We're not worried about your feelings.
I love that.
So yeah, and so I love, well, first of all, I love his artistic ability, which is incredible.
Mhm.
But I also very much admire his sense of humor.
Mhm.
I wrote the card descriptions, but he added a lot of humorous touches of his own. And so, yeah, we did, for some reason, even though we didn't have to get like all touchy feely close or whatever, our working relationship was really, really, we complemented each other very well. And in fact, it was so good that after this was done, after a few months, he said, that was great. Can we do that again? And I said,
Yes.
sure. I don't have an idea. Well, I had an idea, but it wasn't for my next project, but it wasn't really right for his style.
Mhm.
So, but I pulled some ideas from it. And then he had some ideas. He wanted to do something very, oh, it's so hard to explain. Very punk music, goth, urban inspired, like creating multiple worlds with their own mythologies and their
Mhm.
own symbols rather than drawing from things of this world. Um,
Ooh,
let's
so
see,
is
I
that
think,
what your upcoming Good Fortunes Tarot
no,
is?
oh gosh, no. Good
Okay. I was like,
no,
wow.
this one's, we're calling it, well, okay, it is going right now, has the title of Tarot by Night, but we're going to probably, once you propose something with the publishing company, it stays with that name until it's officially changed. So we're going to probably suggest something like Tarot Nocturnum, but it's all nighttime. It all happens at night, and because of that, the stars are really an important part of it. And so pulling in a lot more of the astrological influences, not overtly, not like putting their symbols on the cards, not like that, but just having the actual energy really inform the cards, because sometimes in Rider Waite, that astrological stuff isn't really forward
Mhm.
in the images. So I don't
Oh,
know if we do something like, screen share or something, if you wanted me to show a
oh yeah,
card.
if you want to.
Oh,
Totally.
sure. I love
Totally,
to
totally.
do that.
Well, while you're pulling that up, uh, hearing you say the importance of the stars and the night sky reminds me of an interview that I just listened to with Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Uh,
and how how he got the night sky changed in Titanic because it was the wrong sky for, and like, if you know the latitude and the longitude and what's going on, you, someone is going to know what that night sky is supposed to look like. And so it also might be interesting to like have the night sky be really intentional for like place and be one of those like little Easter eggs of like, oh, they're supposed to
oh,
be like, this card is set in Sydney, Australia in like the spring, and that's what the night sky would look like. Like I have a feeling that it would make this like small niche audience so excited.
it would. And that, unfortunately, that level of creativity and detail are not in this deck, but I have another artist authors group working on a different deck for Llewellyn, and I might suggest that for them because it might work for theirs, because theirs is still in progress. So yeah. Okay, so let me see about this. Oh, screen sharing is disabled, so that's a no-go. Um, unless you change that.
Oh, did I no, I can totally change. Oh yeah, hey, look at that. Sorry about that. There you go. Now you should have all of the permissions you need.
Ah, there. Okay, okay, I'll start with the card that he did, the very first card. Oh, can you even see that? Is that
Oh,
visible? It looks so small on my screen.
It looks huge on my screen,
Okay,
and
that's good.
we'll know with
Oh,
the
wait, I've
lag.
totally lost you. What the
We'll
heck?
know with the lag here shortly about how it looks on the other screens. Oh yeah, it looks great.
Okay, good. I can barely see it. I don't know what that is all about. But anyways, so that's one of the cards that he's done. That was the first one. Well, we could spend all day going through the cards. Let's probably not do that, huh? Okay. That's
We
a
can
little
do that another
self-indulgent.
time
Yeah,
when
yeah.
when
Because
that's
that's not
more.
even the deck we're talking about. You asked about mine and Jonathan's relationship. Yes, very good. We're having so much fun creating this next deck as well.
Good. So with how fantastic you and Jonathan's relationship is, one of the things that I was reminded of when I was looking back through the book last night was this question with the Knight of Wands, that it has some Latin on it. Was that the sort of idea that was yours, or was that the kind of idea of that was Jonathan's, of like, hey, what happens if we add?
Yes, that was Jonathan's. Yes, that is a phrase or a saying from like Roman army, ancient Roman military people,
Uh-huh.
Gloria exercitus or something, meaning something like the glory of the army. So,
Mm.
ooh, military, big, strong army, you know, like, ah. And then you see the card, he's got a cardboard chariot and a little stuffed animal pony. Oh, he's so mighty. So that's kind of part of the joke, you know.
I
So,
love that.
and
Uh,
another thing that was his on the chariot card, the little creatures, beings, kids have a C and a J on there.
uh-huh.
And I said, Jonathan, what does that C and J mean? And he says, that's him and his brother, Chris, Jonathan and Chris.
Oh, I love being able to just like tuck yourself in that subliminal way. And we have a comment from Betty Flesher about the other deck, where she loves the or Betty, I'm assuming your pronouns. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Betty loves the steampunky ideas and the dark of the other deck that you're working on. Awesome.
Oh,
Also,
if that wait, if Betty likes steampunk, has she
uh-huh.
seen my steampunk tarot, which is probably my most famous one?
It
And
is a pretty awesome deck.
it is a really good deck, and it's very chatty, very readable. Allie, the artist, did such a great job. So Betty, maybe check that one out.
Yeah, totally. I don't do I no. I used to, because I used to, so this is a quite a little bit of a side tangent, but we're coming back to Trick or Treat Tarot. The way I was introduced to your steampunk tarot is because one of the things that I also do at festivals and such is vend decks that had been part of Arwen Lynch Poe's collection, Who Says Hi, as does Christine Cunningham Ashworth and Amber Highland. And I know I'm forgetting a couple other people who are like, say hi to Barbara for me. If I forgot, I apologize, but lots of love is coming your way. Oh, yes. And Betty answered yes, that your steampunk deck is in fact the one that was being that she referenced in the comments that she loves so much. So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have since sold that copy of that deck, because it was one of the ones of Arwen's that I was selling, but I absolutely looked through it quite a bit before it went on to a new home. So but back to the deck that we are actually talking about, Tarot. So one of the there are most of us readers, we have those cards that we always look to be like, okay, how do you key into this particular energy, because this is the card that one of the cards that I love in the deck, sort of thing. And while the Four of Wands is not the top of my cards for those, it's definitely like in my top 5, I would say. And so I was quite fascinated that you chose to focus on the celebration side of the Four of Wands rather than the potential marriage side of the Four of Wands. And I'd love to hear you talk about why you made those choices.
Oh, absolutely. One of the challenges with creating a tarot deck and writing about it in limited space is, as we all know, the cards can mean so many things, and we can only represent a certain amount of, we can present a peek into the world that that card opens us up to. And so when I'm working on a deck, I'm thinking about a couple of things. One, the theme of the deck, because the theme is far more than just, ironically, far more than just costumes that we put on.
Although I did love that as
Like
somebody who has costume design in my background, I loved the focus on costumes.
But when you're doing a theme deck, you don't just put costumes on the cards and call it a deck, right? So you're like, what does the theme bring to tarot, and how does that angle the view we're looking at? So every theme kind of brings forward something different in the cards. Another thing is, a lot of times, especially when you're working with a publisher who sells to more of a mass market, a lot of times this will be someone's first deck. So, you want to keep that in mind as well. And then, so what I like to do is, because a good reader can extrapolate, right? So I want to give the broadest, most general version of the card so that it can be extrapolated to whatever the rest of the reading means. So for me, the Four of Wands, also one of my favorite cards, not necessarily the visual depiction of it, but just the meaning of it, because the energy of fire, which can be so out of control and so destructive, in the number 4, which contains it so beautifully. I think the energy of the Wands is almost most beautifully expressed in the 4. I know technically it's supposed to be the 6, but I really like how it plays in the 4. And also the other thing I do with the Four of Wands is it's a celebration. It's a formal celebration, but it is also a temporary setup. So when you're setting up for a wedding, you're creating a space, a sacred space for something to happen. And then you take that space down. It's ephemeral. So that's true of a birthday party or a graduation or a ritual. So I wanted my Four of Wands to be able to represent all those kinds of Four of Wands experiences. It includes the wedding or marriage. And if the other cards and or question pointed in that direction, it's easily extrapolated to mean a wedding. Because, it's, yeah.
Yeah. Because this setup, like, who says this lovely lady in blue with flowing red hair isn't setting up for somebody's wedding necessarily, that somebody wants a big Halloween.
Right. Oh, well, and even if not, I mean, these cards are all metaphors. And
totally.
So they're not literal. I mean, if you use this deck, it doesn't mean you're going to make a Halloween party, right? Again, it's that extrapolation. You need to be able to go from the general to the specific.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but there are people who do want a Halloween themed wedding. I have met some of them.
Me too. It is a lovely time, and especially for those of us who celebrate Halloween or Samhain as our new year, for many can be the like, well, I want to step into this new year with my beloved in this new relationship and bring all of these new steps together at the same time. Let's see. Oh, this is something, one of the many tools and beauties of tarot is affirmation. It can tell us the things that it can be like, yes, you are absolutely on the right path. It can be like, rethink this situation. And consequently, one of the things that because as you mentioned, when you're creating a deck for a mass audience, there is a very good chance that your deck is going to be someone's very first tarot deck, which is super exciting. And consequently, your book might be the first book that they read about tarot. And there's a lot of conversation about crafting good questions and such. But one of the things that I love that you put in here that is my own personal philosophy for a long time, and I was like, yes, someone else is saying it too, is don't ask a question that you don't actually want the answer to. And why did you feel like that was important to include?
Oh, well, I really like to encourage anyone who's thinking of picking up a deck of tarot cards, before they just start shuffling and doing things, to think about things. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Where do you think the information is coming from? What's your philosophy and belief about the future? Because people will sometimes say, well, how does tarot work? Well, tarot doesn't work all by itself. It works because you have a set of beliefs and you employ the cards in a way that reflect those beliefs. That's how tarot works. Yep. And so another thing that I just think people don't always think about is you're going to go get a reading. You're going to go ask a question. Now, of course, you know what answer you want. Do you know what answer you don't want? Now, just imagine, how are you going to feel if you get your reading and that is the answer? Is it going to help you in any way? Is it going to make you just feel bad? Is it going to make you angry? I mean, just think about how that information is going to sit with you. And if it's not going to help you, if it's just going to depress you, then maybe consider not asking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, not all questions need to be asked or answered.
So true. I started thinking that way. There was a movement that I got keyed into a while ago, but they ebb and flow as many things do, of working to get away from pleasantries of the like, hey, how you doing today? Oh, I'm fine, great, like, and have it be like super superficial and just moving on sort of thing, because that's not the level that I want to be meeting people at. And so I was like, no, like when I asked, like, if I am going to ask, how are you today? I'm ready for that answer. Like, I'm having a horrible day. I'm having, like, it's been brilliant, like, and everything in between, because I want that level of depth. And did you already have a like personal practice yourself around intentional language in that way, or is that something that came up in the crafting of Trick or Treat Tarot for you?
Oh, that notion? Oh gosh, no. I've been messing around with the tarot since the 1990s. So that belief is from way back. I don't even know where that came from. Probably just from working with clients and seeing how it went when they'd ask these questions and the answer is no, he's not coming back, and they're distraught. It's like, why did you ask that question when, you know, chances are 75% the answer is going to be no anyways. So yeah, 30 years ago, I don't know where I got it from. It just practical experience.
I love
That's
it.
something, one reason to maybe employ an older reader. All these decades of experience, they're hard won.
It's true. It is absolutely true. I see in the comments that Betty is complimenting how Mr. Rogers is as the Hierophant. And I also agree. When I first saw that, I was like, that is flippin' adorable. So having Mr. Rogers as the Hierophant, was that your idea or was that
Yes.
Jonathan's idea?
Yes. I'm taking that one because it is true. And also true, I feel like part of my personal life mission on this planet is to help tarot readers come to a good relationship with both the Emperor and the Hierophant.
I love
believe
that.
modern tarot readers have, because of their wounds with real life people, are incapable of understanding what the ideal and archetypal energies of those cards mean. And so yeah, I take great care when I craft my Emperor and Hierophant cards for all my decks. It's very important to me. And yes, Mr. Rogers, as someone who is here because he wants you to be successful and happy, and he knows how to do it, so he's going to help you.
Totally. Are you familiar with Cade Burkhammer's The Wise Fool Tarot?
No.
It is not one of the ones that I have with an easy hand grabbing, and I'm not going to leave to go get it. But that is one of my personal favorite Hierophant cards for a similar reason. It is this small child sitting on a stack of books with a Pope's hat on, an anarchist t-shirt, and all of the books that the kid is sitting on are different sacred texts. And some of them are with the spines turned backwards. And I love that depiction of the Hierophant because that small child is really trying to learn and absorb from all of the different world religions, all of the different spiritual paths to find what works and what doesn't work for themselves. And yeah, and the and with this Mr. Rogers, there's just such a lovely sense of listening, and like it takes me back to watching Mr. Rogers as a kid, and the little habits, you know, the coming in and the changing of the sweater and the changing of the shoes, but that it was not just a habit, it was a little ritual because it was a transition from the outdoor space to the indoor space.
Right.
And
yeah, he created a beautiful liminal sacred space with that ritual. And then he even took the liminal to another level when he took them to the land of make-believe.
Yes.
You know, so he had a great sense of different levels of reality and how to use them in a healthy way. I thought that was amazing.
I completely and utterly agree with you. Do you have, so you had mentioned that the Hierophant and the Emperor are two that you really give extra care to because of society's collective wounds around capitalism, toxic masculinity, all of that sort of authority structures, things of that nature. Are there other cards in here that you are particularly proud of, or that Jonathan brought something to that you were like, Oh my gosh, yes, that is so, I didn't even know it needed that, but it needs that.
I am sure there are. Okay, so here's a secret about me. These decks get like, it was published last year, and then the last time I worked on it would have been 9 months before that. So it's been almost 2 years since I've worked with this deck. So, and I've worked on one complete one and another partial. So my brain gets a little like screwy with remembering things, but so your question was about what things Jonathan brought in, or just things that I was proud of in general? I think both. Yeah. So, okay. Another thing I've done in decks, both in the past and in this one, is I like to connect the Fool and the World, because they're
I loved that.
And
loved that. Yes.
So I love how the Fool here begins with, an empty bucket and a sad face, and then he ends at the end with a bucket full and his
little ghosty grin.
And he's doing a peace sign. The peace sign was Jonathan's.
Oh, nice. There's the Fool. There's our Fool for the watchers.
And all the characters, he uses models for those. So he picks, the expressions and physical appearances, he has used, those are people he works with as models. So he did a really great job. Yeah, aren't those just so cute together?
Yes, they are. And especially the one of the things that I love looking at tarot with is like where, and part of this comes from my theater background, is like where on stage are they? And the fact that this little ghosty is a little further in the background, we would say that this our ghosty is a little more upstage, and here they're taking center stage, and they're like rightfully downstage center, taking the spotlight. And and I also love how the weight is different. In the Fool, the weight is planted on 2 feet, so there's like this, I don't know that I actually want to take the next step. While in the World, the weight is on 1 foot, and they're like, I'm dancing through the door, and I'm ready to take the next steps and continue on. And I still might, they still might take a little bit of a pause, because of course, once, from the World to the Fool, and there still might be that little bit of a, when the journey begins again, of like, okay, I'm gonna do it better next year, sort of thing. But I love the attention to what the body shapes inform.
Yes, Jonathan has a good knack for that, because I don't think I had that much detail in the description that I described the groundedness of the Fool and the lightness of the World, so working with a great creative mind is very helpful. The Queen of Pentacles, I feel like the doll in the corner, it up in the cage, giving it a kind of Hansel and Gretel feel. I think that was Jonathan's. I would have to go back and look at my card descriptions to see. Let's see. So that is
I'm so glad you brought up the Queen of Pentacles. I remember one of the first times this card came up in a reading for me, and I know, and every reader is different, but for myself, it's pretty rare that I retain anything of the readings that I give. It is in and out and gone. And so if things come back like that, that means they have a little more stick, a little more anchor
Mhm.
for other things. And I love that and I know it's a costume, but
Mhm.
I love that for this particular costume, the queen is in torn clothing, because I think so often the Queen of Pentacles can be um, imagined as someone who is like very rich in like money and financial resources, and there's
Mhm.
nothing to say that this particular queen isn't, because everyone in this deck is in a costume,
Mhm.
but that
Mhm.
wealth is more, and
Right.
I feel like that is I feel like that essence
Mhm.
is something that can really be talked about when this particular queen comes
Mhm.
up in a reading of maybe your money resources are not huge, but your other resources
Mhm.
are maybe maybe the skills, and who knows, maybe even like doll making, since there are all of these dolls all over the place, like that there are different levels and different types of wealth out there.
Right. Well, and also, it isn't always a matter of how much you have, but what you do with it. I think the Queen of
Totally.
Pentacles is someone who's very resourceful and who
Yes.
understands beauty like at this pure core essence level. And
Mhm.
so that's why she can like have a crown made of paper and empty pixie stick wrappers. It's like
Totally.
what I can take whatever I have here and make something that will blow your effing mind. And
Yes.
that's why I am a Queen of Pentacles, not because I have a lot of money. Any
Hmm.
schmuck can have a lot of money. Anyone can make money. But can you make beauty out of whatever is around you? That's a Queen of Pentacles. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, I love that. I love
artistic tatters.
Yes. Yes. Working with what you have. It is, especially as a global culture start shifting away from the single uses and the single use everythings,
Mhm.
like that ability to be able to work with what you have and find the beauty in that and bring the beauty out of that. I love that as the queen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that might have like started even in my steampunk days because it's a very steampunk philosophy as
Yeah,
well.
totally.
Use the materials at hand to make something magical.
Hmm. So did you have steampunk days? Is that why you started? Well, I don't want to say started, because I don't actually know what your first tarot deck was, but is that part of what inspired your steampunk tarot? Was your steampunk days?
Well, interestingly, back in those days, over 20 years ago, this was, I didn't know the word steampunk, but
Mhm.
I was wearing and imbibing in that aesthetic. And a friend, well, a colleague, a fellow editor was like, well, why aren't you making a steampunk tarot? And I'm like, what's steampunk? He points at my necklace. He's like, that's steampunk. This is, you talk about this and that and that. That's all steampunk. That's a thing. Did you not know it's a thing? Like, no, I didn't know it was a thing. So I looked into it and I'm like, holy crap, it's a thing. I can do this. And then I thought, well, I I'm just gonna like let it stew and simmer, and because it's such a small niche right now, it's going to take years before it crests, and Llewellyn wouldn't be able to justify printing a steampunk deck because it's not popular enough. Blah, blah, blah. Well, it took off like that, so I suddenly like worked really fast. I mean, it still took 3 years because that's how long it takes to make a deck, but I got on it right away. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's how that happened. I was steampunk but didn't know it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Which reminds me of something we put a pin in from earlier in the conversation, chatting about the different ways to create decks of what decks the book comes first, what decks the art comes first, like how the partnerships between authors and writers happen.
Right. And they can happen in so many different ways. So I can tell you about my experiences. So my very first experience writing a companion book, I was obviously already the editor for Llewellyn. And back in this was really early on, like before 2000s. And Llewellyn just published decks, like if people sent, and they didn't have that many. I mean, back then there weren't that many decks. So
yeah, totally.
send in completed decks, completed book, and publish. Well, then we started Ciro Marchetti started it all. So
okay.
back in the day, artists used to send in hard copy portfolios, beautiful. I mean, they were expensive to make, and they'd send them to publishers to get book cover gigs. And the art department assistant saw Ciro's portfolio. He'd sent it in, to get book cover jobs, and she's like, Barbara, this looks like he has some understanding of tarot, which he didn't at the time. It was astrology that he had been doing some illustrating for, but a gateway, a door open. So I did, for the first time in my life, I ever cold called an artist from the cold slush pile and was like, hey, would you ever make a tarot deck? And he said he would. And I'm like, you just follow. This was early on, so we didn't have the system we have now. So I'm like, follow the Rider-Waite, and I'll send you a book, and and if you have questions, I'll guide you. So I kind of very lightly guided him. He really, really basically made it himself. I just think I had a couple of inputs, but then the deck was done and there was no book to go with it. And I was just taking over the tarot line, and I wanted our tarot line to be successful. So I offered to write the book for not royalty. So just a tiny little cash payment up front. And which was the stupidest mistake I've ever made in my life in terms of finances, because that has sold so many copies. I could be much readier to face retirement now if I had not done that. But I cared about, even back then, I cared about tarot so much that I wanted the line to be successful. So I was going to do whatever I felt like I needed to do to make that happen. I'm glad I did, because it did make Llewellyn's tarot kind of take shape and start our process. And I've gotten way off topic. So back to how do you write books? So that was the way I did it the first time, never to happen again. Okay, so there are a few times where a deck is completed and most artists are not writers. And anyone who has written an actual full-length book knows it doesn't just happen. It's hard to write a book. So I would be hired to write the book, which is always fun, because even though I didn't have a hand in crafting the cards, I still got to immerse myself in the cards so deeply, because I seek the voice of the deck and try to express that. So that's always a lot of fun. So like Mystic Fairy, Mystic Dreamer, all the ones with mystic in front of them, come to think of it, Mystical Manga, those were all like done decks that needed books. So those I didn't have much to do with. Tarot of the Hidden Realm was supposed to be more collaborative, but she kind of went off on that one, which worked out great. And that was a fun one, because that came about in the height of my shamanic studies. So, and she is very in touch with the Fae, and was basically making portraits of Fae. And so I was doing a journey for each card to go visit each character. And then that's how I wrote the book. I didn't do it for all the cards. I did it for a handful of them. And then my wife was like, you're getting really weird. I'm scared. Can you please stop doing that? So
Aw.
I cut back a
Good
little
to have
bit.
a wife that like knows you well and knows how to rein you in a little bit if
Yeah,
need be.
that.
Good.
So then like the steampunk and the trick or treat, those are, and wizards tarot, those are ones where I wrote the card descriptions. Like I came up with the ideas and the concepts and wrote the card descriptions and then worked with the artist and kind of art directed it and then write the book. Those are my favorite because those feel more me. Although it is always an honor to be the voice of a deck. I did do a deck for, no, I did a book for a deck, the Diablo Tarot, Sanctuary Tarot. Diablo's a computer game. Have you heard of it?
I've not. But my knowledge of computer games is like next to me.
Yeah, it's by Blizzard. People who do know gaming know these words. I do not. Yeah, so Diablo is a big popular computer game, and they created a tarot deck and asked me to write the book, and I did, and I only saw like 2 cards, and I wasn't supposed to use any of like the story of Diablo because of legalities or something, like they'd have to run it past their internal legal department. So anyways, that was a weird one to write because they didn't know a ton about the world it was set in, and they wanted it to sound kind of medievally, but also urban, you know, popular, current. It was really a challenging book to write. That was
like the mashup, especially like in some ways it makes a lot of sense that they would choose you as the author, as somebody who doesn't know a lot about the game already, so you don't have to like actively take that out of your vocabulary and vernacular, but also then to be able to try and find the language that would speak to that particular like gaming group, like yeah, that I hear that challenge.
Yeah, it was a fun one. It was a very interesting experience, and they wanted it super fast, so I didn't have time to think about it even. Yeah.
Now
So
that's an interesting piece. So I feel like in the tarot and the metaphysical communities, there's a little bit of either or, of taking lots of time to meditate and like really get in touch with the cards or the deck or the message or whatever it, you know, whatever modality and ritual work or divination work that you're doing. And there's the school of like improv in theater, of like you say the first things that come up and let it go and let it be quick and fast, and I don't know of I'm somewhere in between those two. And I definitely have both, but as somebody who has written in multiple styles, is there one that feels more aligned for your process, or is it deck specific, or even maybe publisher specific?
yes, all of that. Yes. That publisher, my mood, all of it. It's all like, I don't do the same thing for every project. Thank God. Otherwise I'd be bored out of my mind. So yeah, it all is so circumstantial to the thing. But I will say, okay, that whole spit out the first thing that comes to your mind is not my bag. I'm not into it. I don't necessarily believe it's always the best thing. I mean, people who teach brainstorming and problem solving and even neuroscience, like the first thing that comes to your mind is not always the best or the right. There are so many layers that happen in your brain before what comes out of your mouth comes out of your mouth. There's no way to know how pure it is unless you've done a lot of work to develop that clear channel, which who does that? I don't have time for that. So yeah, I'm really more of a thinker and a let it sit and stew for a long time. Now, sometimes when I actually go to write, sometimes it comes out quickly. I mean, of course, then it needs to be edited, molded, shaped, and finessed. But it's not like if someone asks me, how long did it take you to write that book? It took me my whole life to write that book, because that book has every aspect of me from the moment I was born till now. And you're lucky I'm old and experienced, because you're getting some treasures, baby.
And that you're willing to share them, because
yeah.
not everybody is willing to share their experiences. Not everybody is willing to share their, like, the things that went wrong, and they're like, oh, why did I make that choice? Like, and all of that is, and yet all of that is not just so valuable for like understanding each other as whole complex beings, but maybe you can learn from my mistakes and not do them. And ooh, do the winds agree? I don't know if you can, hear, but the winds around me just went, and all of the rain that is on the tarp above me went like the elements agree with us.
I love that.
We're coming up on our last 10 minutes. So for the folks who are listening and watching live, if you have any questions, make sure you get them into the chat so that we can address them. And I want to make sure that you have time to talk about your upcoming classes and your upcoming good fortune tarot.
Yes, I'll mention the classes quick just so we get on to the part I actually want to talk about. So yeah, classes, I've been teaching a little bit through the Theosophical Society of America. If you go to their website, you can find the info. And so starting in February on Tuesday evenings, for 4 weeks, I'm teaching a tarot spreads class. I've written a book on spreads. I don't just teach, here are a bunch of spreads. Instead, I teach like the theory behind spread design and how you can tell if a spread was well designed and if it's able to do the job you need it to do, and how you can modify it if not, what to think about ahead of time before, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to geek out about spreads, you're going to love that class.
Yes.
So yeah, so the Good Fortune Tarot, it started, since we can screen share, I can maybe share the cover. Wait.
Yes, please.
Yes, because the cover is finished. So this project started in, I think I started, anyways, I'm going to get too boring or too detailed if I go that route. Okay, so Good Fortune Tarot. We were lucky enough to get Jessica Rowe to do the cards for this deck, and they are amazing. Okay, so
I love all of the beads.
You know how sometimes people talk about, like a Harry Potter deck or this deck or that deck. And then, people are like, oh, then Dumbledore could be this and Harry could be that. Well, when I think about decks to go with different worlds or fandoms that I like, I don't want a deck that has those characters on it. I want the deck that those characters would use in that world.
Ooh,
right, and that's what I'm always looking for. And yeah, so I wanted a deck that, and I didn't have a fandom or a world for this one. I just wanted to create a deck that people who lived in a magical world might use. So that, and the other main inspiration for this deck was I started studying Marseille Tarot. Just because I love to keep studying new things. And
absolutely, this is how we continue learning. Yes.
I was so enchanted with the cleverness and the wit the humor in the Marseille. I'm like, oh my God, why didn't anyone ever tell me how hilarious this deck is? And so there, and the Justice card in the Marseille, I mean, this card on the cover is Justice for my deck, Good Fortune, and it is a complete copy, well, not in the clothes and stuff, but look at the posture, look at the scales, look at her knee lifting the scale and her elbow putting the other scale down. Fortune in this deck is working in your favor. In fact, all the cards are working in your favor. That's why it's called the Good Fortune Tarot. So it is clever and witty and beautiful and talkative and chatty and very much for story people like narratives and whatever. Really, really good. So the deck itself is gorgeous and very readable, and I don't think people would get bored with it, but they would also, if you know Rider-Waite, you can easily use it. So excellent. Now the thing that was
is it following a Marseille style in that the minor arcana are pips, or are they illustrated like the RW?
Yeah, absolutely. It is Rider-Waite Smith Tarot with Marseille influence. So yeah, it's like we did not switch strength and justice. They are 8 for strength, 11 for justice, just like Uncle Arthur said they should be.
Uncle Arthur.
Uncle Arthur. Well, we do talk about Uncle Arthur and Cousin Crowley in the book. And nice. So this is what I want to talk about because this is very important to me. So in writing this book is different than any book I've ever written. And I'm very proud of it and very excited about it. So I've spent my whole life, my whole career, trying to be the type of writer who is approachable, almost generic, like I'm here for everybody. You know, I want to write at everyone's understanding level and relatability and openness, kindness, non-judginess, all these good things. Okay, so many months ago, when people started being able to play with Chat GPT, I started playing with that. Obviously, as a writer, I'm very interested in this. And I can't remember exactly what I had it do, but I think I had it write an introduction to tarot in, you know, I described my voice or whatever. And then I printed it out and I read it to my wife. I'm like, I didn't tell her what it was. I just said, hey, listen to this. And I read it. And she's like, oh, that's good. I forgot about that. Which of your books did that come from? And I went, oh, no. I'm like, crap. I've spent all my life developing a voice that is easily copied by AI. That's boring and horrible, and I'm not happy about that. And so I thought, well, I'm going to write this book completely different. And I did. Also, because I turned 60, I feel very cronish now. And I mentioned the curmudgeonly thing. It's a little sassier. It's a little harsher. It's a little like, listen, honey, if you're too stupid to figure this out, maybe you shouldn't be shuffling the cards. You know, like, yes. I know tarot, people like to say tarot is for everyone, but I don't think it is, because when you shuffle the cards, you're co-creating the future.
Yeah.
I don't want just any idiot doing that. Please don't. Anyways, the other thing I wanted it to be very creative. And so I created a new author. Her name is Simone Bonneau. And she has written a book called The Rules of Fate and Destiny. And I don't know when or if Simone was ever born, or if she lived on this plane or another plane, or if her book was ever published, but she has an attitude.
Yes.
And so she wrote the foreword for my book. She basically roasts me. It's pretty hilarious.
Oh my God.
I know. And then there are quotes from her throughout the book. So yeah, it's totally different than anything I've ever written. It's lots of fun. It really pokes fun at Crowley and Waite and the Golden Dawn. And, you know, at one point, Simone is like, you go, Babs, you give it to the patriarchy. You know,
Yes.
because one of the things I have an issue with is like their astrological interpretations, not their associations, whatever. You do whatever you're going to do. But, you know, why do you always make Venus be such a negative planet? Is it because it's feminine? I mean, geez, you
Gee,
guys.
I
I know.
wonder.
I know. So I really question and pull out a lot of, call it out.
Yes.
The gloves are off.
Oh, good. Well, I would love to have you back to talk about that because we are at time already. And I know the hour flew by.
It did.
Next month for my birthday month, I will be talking about the Last Unicorn Tarot and another no unicorn deck, a little badass deck that was a gift to me. The Rebel Oracle, get all of my little unicornsy things in for my birthday month. And Barbara, thank you so much for joining me. And for folk who want to pick up Trick or Treat Tarot, I will make sure there are links in the box below. And I do hope that you will come back when Good Fortune Tarot is out to the public and talk a little more about that, because we didn't even get to scratch the surface of it.
I know. Yes, I'll definitely come back. It was totally fun. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You are so welcome. Have a beautiful rest of your day. For y'all who are watching, I go live the 10th of the month at 11 o'clock Pacific. And